Please be advised that some of the programming heard on WRFL between the hours of 10 p.m. and 6 a.m. may not be suitable for all listeners. For questions, comments, or concerns, please email programming@wrfl.fm or call 859-257-4636.
So good morning and welcome again to Radio Free Eskippakithiki. And what you just heard there was first Wolf Parade off their new album Underglass. The album's called Thin Mind. The track is called Underglass. The second was Shellac playing The Admiral, and then it was a band called Shana Falana playing Go Higher. And we're back in the studio today and just playing some music. Did you want to talk about Iran?
Oh, well, sure, at some point, for sure.
Leap right
Iran,
into
Iraq, Syria, the whole Middle East.
Yeah, and I guess we should mention what just happened with Bernie Sanders, and we also got a very nice letter from the Nelson County Democrats, or the chairman of the Nelson County Democratic Party, which was the story from last week. But I don't know if you've heard, but there's mass confusion in Iowa. Apparently, we're not going to have any idea who won the Iowa primary for a day or so, but apparently Pete Buttigieg declared victory. So yeah, people are upset. Anyway, what else is there to say? This is Safe Harbor, which means that if we accidentally curse or if there's any songs with bad words, it'll be all right. And now I'd like to play a song by a friend of mine, Lily Lonely Hearts from Austin, Texas, with her song Whirling Dervishes.
Within these whirling, whirling dervishes.
was Lily Lonely Hearts from her album Backpage Exorcist. Just came out last year in Austin, Texas. She came up here and played a couple shows, and it was a really good time. So anyway, we wanted to tell you what Iran had to say. Go ahead, Jeff.
All right, Jeff. It's Geoff Young here, and Jeff Šebesta is the DJ.
Yeah, one of us is a libertarian Democrat, and the other one is a socialist Republican. But we agree on most things.
That's right. It shows you what good labels do.
Yeah, really.
Well,
Anyway.
So back last month, January, when President Trump ordered the assassination of Iranian General Soleimani and also killed some militias who, all of them had been fighting ISIS, fighting against terrorists in Iraq and Syria. So he murdered some leaders. Iran at that point swore that their goal is to evict all U.S. troops from the entire Middle East. I'm not sure that was reported very much in this country, but that's their stated goal. And
They passed a resolution or something? Like,
their leader, who is a religious leader, Ayatollah Khamenei, announced that that was their goal. Get all U.S. troops out of the Middle East, especially Iraq and Syria. And the Iraqi parliament voted to kick U.S. forces out of Iraq unanimously.
Yeah, I read that.
And, you know, those kind of statements are meant for a long term. They're not going to change that.
Hey, I have a question about the assassination of Soleimani.
Yep.
I don't understand how it took place. Was he just like walking through an airport and they shot a missile at him?
Well, I'm not sure where it was, but basically that's true. And he was with some Iraqi militia leaders at the time, and they got killed too.
Wow. I
The
don't know.
Iraqis were unhappy about that. There were huge demonstrations in Baghdad, huge demonstrations in Tehran and other Iranian cities. So those two countries have been driven closer together by U.S. aggression. And about kicking U.S. troops out of the Middle East, that it may take them 10, 20, 30, 40 years.
Yeah.
But that goal will never go away.
It's true, and I mean, like, I respect the goal. I just don't want it to be done violently. And also, I mean, I don't think it can be. I think that if you push, there's an equal and opposite reaction, and violent action against American soldiers will actually, paradoxically, keep us there longer.
I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know either. I don't know
That
how
depends
it works.
on politics in the United States. That
Yeah.
depends on our domestic politics, what effect.
Well, we've certainly lost the will to be there. You know, yet we're there. I mean, we have a completely separate military...
Well, you have to define what you mean by we.
Yeah.
Who are we? I think the American people want our troops to come home.
At this point,
In
the American
general.
people are almost completely separate from the military.
Right.
The military is forming its own society. Like...
Yeah, its own policies, its own...
Yeah, they don't even really affect
its own
us
bubble.
anymore. Yeah, like, well, I mean, did you notice the last couple times that the last few times that we've had some sort of major Trumpus in the Middle East, gas prices don't even go up anymore.
Well, there was a little spike maybe a month ago when some corporations felt that Iran might close the Straits of Hormuz to oil shipping. Something like 25% of all the world's oil that is traded goes through that strait. Iran could block it.
Yeah, and as I understand it, it's a very indefensible. The Strait of Hormuz and Is it the Gulf? I don't. I'm betraying my ignorance here. I don't know the name of the body of water behind it. Is it the Red Sea?
Persian Gulf.
The Persian Gulf leading to the Red Sea? What's the Strait of Hormuz
No,
between?
Red Sea, I think, is near Sinai Peninsula.
It's between Kansas City, Missouri, and Kansas City, Kansas.
Yeah, right. That's the Red Sea.
Anyway, my point is that whatever is back there is large and flat and surrounded by shallow desert cliffs on both sides. So every time they talk about sending American aircraft carriers into the Strait of Hormuz, people are like, it's a death trap.
Right.
Yeah, it's an absolutely indefensible death trap for boats, and you can't fight on it, is what I'm trying to say.
Right, but you can land troops on either side of it. It would be a fight. It would.
No, but maybe, was it you that was saying it last week? Like, maybe we don't have the overwhelming technological edge.
Right.
Like the Saudi Arabian missile bombardment sure wasn't shot down by any Patriot missiles.
Right, and same goes for the missile bombardment against U.S. bases in Iraq.
Yeah. Is that what I thought that's what I was talking about. Oh, man.
You said Saudi Arabia.
Oh, did I? I apologize.
Well, their missile defenses didn't work either.
Yeah.
And the attackers in that case were the Houthis in Yemen, not
I'm
a major country like Iran.
I'm so far out of my depth with this stuff.
Well, those are details,
Yeah.
but your general point is correct that U.S. anti-missile defenses are not very effective.
No, I guess not. I guess they never were, and they still aren't. And I don't know. So much of my political thinking is emotional. Like, I just want to get out of there.
Right.
I have to admit, I just honestly just want America to get out of the Middle East.
Okay, so I feel the same way.
Yeah.
But I'm also aware that that's the goal of the government of Iran.
Yeah. I hope they're smart about it. I mean, if they're smart about it and they do it right, then they're helping us too. It's if they manage to get the soldiers out of there without hurting them.
Right.
And I mean, I guess that's what I'm trying to say is, like, I would like to tell whatever parts of the Iranian government are listening to us is that if you kill the soldiers, they'll stay forever.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
That's in the future. I try not to make predictions. It's hard enough to predict the past.
Yeah, that's true. I don't know what's going on right now. I'm as confused as anybody by what's going on in Iowa. So what happened in Iowa, speaking of the impenetrability of our own systems, is that the Iowa caucus is not returning a result tonight. They are just plain not going to tell people who won the Iowa caucus.
Good. They shouldn't report results unless you can verify them.
Yeah, so they're going to paper to verify them.
As long as it takes is fine.
Yeah. Well, and some
Americans are too impatient to get the results.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right about that. Yeah, you're right. I mean, people are completely freaking out, and I think they're freaking out based on frustration.
Uh-huh.
And also, well-based belief that it's been stolen from Bernie Sanders in the past. But it just seems to me like frustration. Like, people just want the results tonight.
Yeah. I say cool it.
Yeah.
If you find out, tomorrow or the next day.
If we're dealing with an archaic system like Iowa, which is actually sort of charming system, I was telling you before, but apparently in Iowa, the way they caucus is you elect delegates, and then the delegates go stand in a room. And where you stand in the room represents who you want to vote for in the primary. And if there are less than 15% of whoever in whatever corner, if whatever corner has less than 15% of all the people there, they can't win. So whoever was supposed to be in that corner is welcome to go stand someplace else.
Well, that's ranked choice voting.
Yeah, it's a really interesting
there.
form of ranked choice voting, and everybody in Iowa is apparently really into it. And they've built up all the like all of us, they've built up all the candidates into characters in their head, and they all have elaborate plans for where they want to stand in the room.
Okay.
And they think that everybody does this. They're confused that everybody else doesn't have this primary system.
They wonder why they don't do it, say, in California.
Yeah. Maybe they should. But this is a wonderful introduction to what's surely going to be a test of all our patience. I swore up and down I wasn't going to get involved or even pay attention to national politics again. But I swear to God, if they steal it from Bernie Sanders,
Again.
yeah, it's possible that the Kentucky primary might matter this year.
Possible.
Yeah. It's if things go long enough, and I don't know. Yeah, and the other thing is that, like, I'm not going to say anything bad about Pete Buttigieg. I'm just going to play more music.
All right.
All right, here we go.
Something with green triangles, very large green triangles.
Hello again, we're back. Geoff is causing trouble. So
Not here in the studio.
No, much better trouble than that. But indirectly referring to what we were just talking about, I wanted to come back to the Nelson County thing last week, which was the Republican who changed parties to the Democrat and is trying to run for state representative in District 50. In any case, the party chairman from Nelson County wrote me. I wrote him. He wrote me back. And he had this to say. And I don't normally, we talked about, I should have just like specifically said, hey, can I just read your email? But it's clearly just like his official position. So I don't want to be like, I just normally read people's emails. But anyway, okay, so here's what he says. As party chairman, I have told Mr. Reed, the former Republican running as a Democrat, whose wife is still on the executive committee of the Republican Party of Nelson County, who is suing or striking out at their own speaker or something like that. But anyway, all confusing. Anyway, Mr. Reed, David Reed, the fellow at the center of all this, that I will treat him exactly like any other candidate, and that he is welcome at any party function unless and until a court of law tells me differently. The lawsuit was filed by an individual voter, and the party leadership has no role, involvement, or even knowledge of any details or any other aspects of it, other than what has been made public. So, seems like the right thing to say to me.
Yeah, that was the right thing to say.
Yeah.
For a party chair to say that was prudent.
Yeah. Yeah, that was really smart. He says, we are entering new territory and learning as we go. The integrity of the party is important, but I shrugged there. You couldn't see. But open elections are important too. So, good for them. So, I guess let the courts decide. This would require the courts to decide what exactly a Democrat is so they could decide what a Democrat isn't.
They don't have to decide that. They could just throw it out.
Well, that's probably what's going to happen, yeah. I don't see it going anywhere, but what do I know? Okay, well, there's a little bit of Kentucky news for the day. I hadn't found much more, so on with another song.
Support for WRFL is brought to you in part by the UK Singletary Centre for the Arts. In the spring of 2020, the Singletary Centre presents Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Bluegrass Band, guitarist Raul Madan, and the American Spiritual Ensemble performing the music of Duke Ellington. Located at 405 Rose Street, tickets and more information are available at singletarycenter.com. WRFL thanks the Singletary Centre for supporting college radio.
Hello there. So what you just heard was the Gil Evans Orchestra with Lunar Eclipse. Got a little bit precious there. Didn't really go where I wanted to go. Before that was a Man or Astroman album that I have never heard, which is a rare thing indeed. It's their album DEFCON 5, and that's the first track. And before that was a sentimental favorite of mine, Matmos' album, The Marriage of True Minds, with their song Very Large Green Triangles. And this was their album that they wrote telepathically. They came up with a series of cards and put them in a closed box, and then they had people come over to their house and attempt to read their mind and to read what they were thinking about, and that's how they wrote the lyrics for the album, was through ESP. Pretty cool. It's a good album. And then before that was good old Lily Lonely Hearts. So, Geoff, you were going to educate us on what the history of the mess in Iraq?
Yeah, recent, the past few decades. So last week we talked a little bit about the history of U.S.-Iran relations since about 1980, 1979. Thought we'd do a little bit about Iraq, where the United States invaded and conquered and occupied the country in 2003, and Syria, where the current, let's call him the top leader, Bashar al-Assad, happens to be one of the sons of Syria's previous top leader, Hafez al-Assad.
Yeah, he's a part of a dynasty that goes back. His father took over in Syria. I mean, Assad's father was leader of Syria for years, right?
Yeah.
Like from the 1950s on or something like that.
Yeah, something like 30 years.
Yeah. And then Syria was generally considered to be the most peaceful part of the Middle East, I thought.
Internally.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was true until about,
fairly
2010,
recently.
2011.
Dude, somebody just fell so hard right outside the window.
They fell?
Yeah, no, everything was fine in Syria until, to be perfectly blunt, the Obama administration.
Yeah, it wasn't fine necessarily. It was a pretty repressive government, especially under
Fair, yeah.
Hafez al-Assad, the father of the current leader. Okay, so around 2010, 2011 actually, there was some unrest in Syria. They had a bad drought. They had all kinds of people unhappy with the government.
Wasn't that part of the Arab Spring?
Right.
Yeah. Which was WikiLeaks. WikiLeaks came straight out of the Arab Spring. No, Arab Spring came straight out of WikiLeaks. I'm sorry.
I'm not sure. Came out of a lot of things.
No, the Arab Spring. Well, yeah, but the direct trigger for Arab Spring. I always interrupt your stories. I'm sorry.
That's all right.
Do you want to talk about this, because it's great?
Well, what happened was in 2011, President Obama and Secretary of State Hillary Clinton at that time started bombing Libya. And, as you say, Arab Spring, about that time, 2011, there was some conflict in Libya, too. And...
yeah, there were demonstrations against Gaddafi or something like that, right? What was the casus belli for us? I don't even know if I pronounced that right. What was the reason for us to get involved in Libya?
It was an excuse, or the excuse we used, NATO and the United States. NATO is pretty much led by the U.S.
Yeah.
Got involved in Libya militarily because the media reported that Gaddafi was going to put down this unrest in, I think it was Benghazi.
Benghazi's the second biggest city in Libya, right?
Okay.
Yeah. Something like that.
And so the idea was NATO has to start bombing the Libyan army and declare a no-fly zone.
Mm-hmm.
No-fly zone applying only to Libyan aircraft, not to NATO aircraft. They could fly whenever they wanted.
Or the no-fly zone is like the Clintonian signature.
Yeah, okay.
She loves her no-fly zones.
She sure did.
Yeah.
So
Thank you for the use of the past tense.
based on the fear that that Gaddafi's forces would commit a massacre in Benghazi, NATO started bombing the Libyan military. And
NATO being us.
well,
technically-
France mainly.
Oh, was France? Yeah, France was bombing, weren't they?
Yeah.
I remember that.
They
yeah.
may have dropped the first bombs of all the NATO countries, whatever.
No, because it was a big deal because it was the French, I think the Mirage or something like that. It was some plane that they wanted to test out.
Oh, okay.
It was a big deal that we brought France along because that like everybody's like, look, Obama's better at starting foreign wars than Bush. He brings France.
Right.
Because like we
Right.
really felt that's what was missing with Iraq was, the French touch.
Huh.
Anyway, yeah.
The
So yeah, we
the
started.
driving force behind NATO involvement or military attacks against Libya was Hillary Clinton.
Oh, for sure, yeah. I think so.
I didn't know that at the time, but
No, me neither. But it's so obvious
a couple
now.
of years later, all the reports came out, and it was quite clear that she was actually behind the NATO attack. Completely illegal.
Yeah.
Total aggression.
Mm-hmm.
Countries are supposed to solve their internal conflicts without outside interference.
Well,
In this case, the media played a central role by whipping up fears of an imminent massacre, which never occurred.
Mm-hmm. Well, it did after we invaded.
After we invaded, the country was shattered.
Apparently, it's been thrown back to the Dark Ages.
Well, yeah, there are all these. It's got like three groups that all claim to be the legitimate government of Libya. It's got regional warlords in parts of the country. And so from 2011 till 2020 here, 9 years, Libya has been shattered, a failed state. It was the country in Africa where the average people were better off than any other country
Yeah.
in Africa. It was developing economically. They've got oil. They were using the income from oil to lift up the whole society.
Why do you think Reagan decided to go after them to begin with?
Reagan?
Yeah, back in the 80s. Why do you think Reagan made such a big deal out of Libya? I mean, it's not that
It was independent of the United States.
I've heard a story that they were
Empire.
trying to switch out of using the U.S. dollar
Yep.
for oil sales.
That's right. And Gaddafi was aiming for a gold-backed
Yeah.
currency through the entire continent of Africa.
Yeah, yeah.
So he was working with all the other countries and trying to separate their economies from the Western Empire. That's probably the reason why he became an enemy of the official government of this country.
That's so dark.
Yeah. So Libya was prosperous, and now it isn't.
Yeah.
Now it's just, there's slaves being sold in public, they
Yeah,
got
I mean,
slave
I've read
auctions,
that too.
and the country is a mess.
Yeah, it's you can't really argue that our intervention improved the place. If they're selling slaves on the street, that would be an
That's
F.
a step backward for
Yeah,
sure.
we get an F on that. That wasn't good. That wasn't a good intervention.
Right. Completely illegal, but that
Yeah.
fact has hardly ever been raised.
Yeah.
Back in 2011 or within a year or two after that, I was calling for the impeachment of Barack Obama for aggression against Libya.
Yeah, you're right. I gave Obama way too much slack. I gave Obama way too much leeway because I liked him and I still like him.
Well,
I mean,
our
I don't
media
like him.
corporations,
Well,
our
yeah.
media corporations gave him a whole lot of slack, like they give every president a lot of
Mhm.
slack, except possibly the current one.
Well, yeah, it depends on the media corporation, but no, even Fox gives him hell at this point.
Okay.
You know, I mean, I guess that's part of the fun for them. Like, have you seen the polls that show Sanders outpolling Trump with Fox news viewers?
That's real interesting.
Yeah, it's real interesting.
Not to mention all the other ones. I mean, I assume that if it's true of Fox, then Bernie is outpolling Trump across the board, right?
Yeah, I would assume so. There wouldn't be much, you know. There's not another Fox behind Fox that I'm aware of.
Yeah.
Anyway, okay, so to stick
All right,
on what you're talking
so
about.
we destroyed the country at the same time. Well, after the initial blows, after Muammar Gaddafi was caught and just lynched in the desert
Yeah, dreadfully. Which is not to say he
by
was a
some
good
of these
person.
militias, not by U.S. troops.
Yeah.
But the NATO air attacks had made that incident possible.
Yeah, they harried him from town to town.
Yeah.
And this was, I mean, everybody thinks about Benghazi now, but this was long before anybody heard the words Benghazi in America.
Right. A year before.
Yeah, was it a year later?
Yeah.
Boy, we really were we were really amping up to just, do we still have a military base in Libya?
I don't know about bases, but
I'm going to Google it.
we're conducting operations there today.
We do have soldiers in Libya.
Okay.
God, who can keep track? A while ago, we tried to figure out how many American military bases there are, and you can't. There's no clear
Something
answer.
like 1,000.
Yeah, 500 to 1,000. Nobody's really sure.
Well, I think the low number is 800.
Yeah, yeah.
No, 800 to 1,000.
American,
Anyway,
yeah.
the CIA shipped some of these fighters, Libyan Islamist fighters,
Uh-huh.
Through Turkey and into Syria in order to try to overthrow the Syrian government of Bashar al-Assad. That's 2011. Destroyed Libya and tried to do the same thing in Syria.
Yeah, and
that's another reason I call for Obama's impeachment.
it's worth noting that Syria was already having trouble because all the refugees from all the other countries that we'd invaded around there, like they'd all been going to Syria because Syria was considered safer and more stable and more
Right.
economically prosperous than. I mean,
Wow.
it's not like there's a lot of competition like Lebanon. You know, they're more economically prosperous than Bahrain. But I remember that when I lived down in Austin, the University of Texas printing press, you know, they'd been printing the University of Texas Texan. It's a major college paper. It's a major paper in Texas. It's got a huge history, and it's in Austin, so it's had a very, you know, a long history of getting right up in the government's face and advocating for important stuff and stuff like that. Anyway, they'd always had their own printing press, which is a big deal because they could do anything they wanted to because they had their own printing press.
Uh-huh.
And then I want to say 2007 or 2008, a group of investors came along and said, you know, you all don't need your printing press. You can just print your stuff up in Houston or Dallas, you know, at this other place, and you should sell your printing press because it's so much cheaper to farm it out than it would ever be to maintain your own press. So they sold the press to a bunch of investors who took it to Syria.
They took the press. They took the equipment to
They
Syria?
took the printing press to Syria, where I assume it is, you know, still there, but in smaller pieces.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah,
That's an interesting incident.
Yeah, and ever since then, the quality of the reporting on the Daily Texan got a lot less acerbic and a lot less challenging.
Yeah.
Because it's just got an effect when other people control your printing press.
Uh-huh.
You know, there's a feeling of independence that's lost. And
so,
anyway,
so getting back to
Yeah.
2011,
yeah. So yeah, it was
it
considered
was-
so nice
it-
until then. It was so safe, and then
basically not
Yeah.
reported by our mainstream media corporations that the United States was shipping basically Al-Qaeda terrorists from one country to another trying to overthrow each one in turn. Al Qaeda, if you remember,
Wait,
was
literally Al Qaeda?
yeah, they were the group that attacked America on 9/11, 2001.
Wait, we were shuttling Al Qaeda
We're shipping them
alumni
to Syria. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, and they go by 10 or 20 different names. They have splinter groups and all that. Basically, we were shipping Al Qaeda,
like a French Foreign Legion or something like that.
Yeah, a U.S. Foreign Legion made up of people. Maybe they started in Afghanistan.
Yeah.
Back in the 80s. And the U.S. government has been using them as our foot soldiers, our foreign legions against Libya and Syria in 2011. That's why Tulsi Gabbard, a couple years ago, introduced a bill in Congress called the Stop Arming Terrorists Act.
Yeah, okay, I remember that, but I had no idea.
That's what she was talking about.
Yeah.
We should stop funding and using Al-Qaeda as our troops. That's what her bill was designed to stop.
Okay, so I guess my question here is, are you talking about, we have auxiliaries of people who are veterans of Al-Qaeda who have been forcefully or not turned over to, quote, our side? Or are we saying, we were the ones funding Al-Qaeda the whole time?
We've been funding them the whole time.
Oh, damn it.
Well, no. Saudi Arabia also has been funding them.
Well, yeah, it's really hard to... it's really hard to separate the Bin Laden family from Saudi Arabia. That's a... they go way back.
They're a big, rich family there.
It's like the name Khashoggi and Iran.
Okay.
Did you know that?
No.
Adnan Khashoggi's uncle was the richest man in the world.
Huh.
And the Queen wrote a song about his boat. I'm not even kidding. He was a
the
big
Queen of what? England?
No, the band Queen, like Freddie Mercury, We Are the Champions. Seriously, they wrote a song called Khashoggi's Boat that was about whatever the journalist's uncle's yacht, gigantic yacht.
Uh-huh.
The guy was incredibly rich. He was like Bin Laden. He was the son of a astoundingly rich and powerful oil family.
Okay.
Yeah. Anyway, just minor detail that's all coming in together. But anyway, so yeah, the Bin Ladens and Saudi Arabia and Al Qaeda are all definitely related concepts.
Yeah. Right. So that's really what's been going on in Libya and Syria. And then, sometimes Al Qaeda splits, and out of that came ISIS.
So ISIS is people from Al Qaeda.
They're split off from Al Qaeda, yeah.
Are they the same people that were working with us, or the same? It's us is the wrong word here. Are they the same?
All right. So when you talk about ISIS, some of them were imprisoned when we took over Iraq. They spent a lot of time in prison, and they got better organized, and they eventually became ISIS. So then for the next few years throughout the teens, sometimes the United States would bomb ISIS, and sometimes they would arrange for weapons to get to ISIS. So we were both an ally and an enemy of ISIS ever since it formed.
It really sounds like we just didn't know what we were doing.
Some of that.
Yeah.
But there are State Department documents that have been made public that suggest that Hillary Clinton, for example, and everybody else in the State Department knew that U.S. weapons were making their way through Al-Qaeda, which we considered the moderate rebels, and our media called them moderate rebels. This is Al-Qaeda, the group that attacked us on 9/11. They're the moderate rebels, and ISIS were the non-moderate rebels. Weapons were getting from the Al-Qaeda groups to ISIS.
And trucks.
And trucks,
Trucks, those
Toyota pickups.
Hiluxes, yeah. That was a big deal,
Somehow
too.
they got those. So, then ISIS kind of did its own thing, took over large areas in both Iraq and Syria, and nobody liked them. Everybody was attacking them, or they were attacking everybody else. ISIS eventually shrank over the years. Still exists, but it's kind of...
As I understand, Syria and the
Kinda
Russians
small.
sort of...
Syrian government, right, and the Russians really stopped ISIS. Also, militias, or some Iraqi militias, and this General Soleimani.
Because Soleimani was fighting
Against ISIS.
Soleimani was
that's what
going
he
to
spe-
Saudi Arabia to work on a peace treaty with Saudi Arabia so they could fight ISIS, right?
Some kind of truce or improved relations between Saudi Arabia and Iran. That's what he was working toward when he was assassinated by Trump in like January 1st, January 2nd of 2020. Yeah, he was on something like a peace mission between two countries, two Muslim countries, not two Arab countries. Iran is not Arab; it's Persian.
Yeah, that's true.
But Saudi Arabia and Iran had been enemies for the last, I don't know how long, decade or so, or more.
But we're uniting everybody against us. Now, where does Saudi Arabia fit in with this consensus for America to leave the Middle East?
The Saudi monarchy knows that they need U.S. troops in the region to prevent them from being overthrown by the people who live in Saudi Arabia and by neighboring countries like Iran.
Is there a lot of popular unrest in Saudi Arabia? Like, do people want to overthrow the government there?
A lot of the people there are guest workers. Saudis don't have enough Saudis to run their society, run their economy without importing workers from other countries, all over the world, really.
Are these like Dubai's guest workers, where they're basically slaves?
A lot of them are. They're not treated real well. So a lot of people working there are not happy with the monarchy. And it's not a real stable situation where you have one large, unbelievably wealthy family, the Saud family, running the country. And everybody else is like second or third or fourth class citizens.
It seems to me... Yeah, it seems to me that what's happening in Saudi Arabia is that you have one incredibly wealthy royal family that dispenses largesse with both fists to everybody who was an old school Saudi who's been there for a while, and then they're bringing in all these other people as guest workers / slaves.
Right.
Because, I mean, maybe I'm projecting from what I've read about Dubai, but Dubai, like, the guest workers really are slaves.
Okay.
You know, not all of them, but a lot of them. You know, a lot of them came over. Like, you're not allowed to leave Dubai if you owe money.
Okay.
They'll take your passport away.
Oh.
You know, there's a lot of people in debtor's prison or debt slavery over there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, so I don't know if that's what's going on in Saudi Arabia or not.
Yeah, I think it is.
You know, it's hard to understand these things about places that are so important, but they're just lists of proper nouns to me.
Right.
You know.
So the monarchy, all the monarchies want U.S. military presence around. The main countries that want the U.S. out of the Middle East are Iran, now Iraq, Syria, of course. Since 2011, all of our troops there in Syria have been there illegally. They're considered terrorists by the local population. They're considered invaders. And they use the word crusaders, too.
Yeah, well...
talking about history 1,000 years ago.
Didn't George Bush say something about a crusade at one point?
Yeah, he let that slip.
That was a really dumb thing for him to say.
A faux pas.
Yeah. Yeah, as it were. But yeah, no,
he
we
also
are.
called, I mean, the original acronym for our war in Iraq was Operation Iraqi Liberation. They actually said that.
Oh yeah, I remember that. OIL. Yeah, they were like,
OIL.
"Oh wait, that's a bit too on the nose."
We can't use that. We have to.
That was somebody's joke way back where that wasn't supposed to get to the front page. But all right, well, I'm going to play another song. It's after 6 o'clock, and this is 88.1 WRFL, all the way to the left. Before we go, I wanted to say I looked it up. I forgot. So I knew there was another guy in the family. So Adnan Khashoggi was the richest man in the world. In the early 80s, he had $4 billion. His nephew was Jamal Khashoggi, the guy whose head fell off in the Saudi Arabian embassy earlier. And his other nephew, oddly, and this ties in with other things that are in the news right now, was Dodi Fayed. The man who was driving the car with, or driving in a car with Princess Diana when she died.
Interesting.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I know you don't care for this side of politics too much, but with Epstein going direct, the one thing that really surprised me out of Epstein, because I always knew about, Bill Clinton and Donald Trump being involved with Jeffrey Epstein. I'd known about that for years, but I had no idea about the British royal family. And boy, I've heard a lot of stories about the British royal family over the years, and boy, all of a sudden do they sound really plausible. Maybe some of the stuff people were saying at the time was true. I mean, Princess Diana sure was happy when she got married and then stopped being happy. She was real, I don't know. Anyway, so yeah, this guy has a family that's, he goes from being the richest man in the world to passing away of old age, and then all of a sudden his distant nephews start dying. Sort of odd. Anyway, all right, well, I'm going to play some music that I like. We're supposed to go right into the next song there. Sorry about that. Okay, how about this? Nope.
Fill the dead air here with a little.
Yeah, I guess we're gonna have to fill the dead air with something there because it's just not playing. Why you do this to me? Oh, computer. Okay, well, how about that sports team? Kansas City, Missouri, not in Kansas. Actually, also in Kansas, but most people didn't know that, right? Well, now you do. Okay, I guess I'm just going to play some more music and reconnoiter what's going on with that. Good morning. That was Phantoms with their song called Designs for You, and before that was the first of a 3-part rock opera that I planned to play that was defeated by my computer just deleting 2 of the songs, but that was Do Make Say Think with their song Bound, which goes very well with Alpha Desperation March by Adam and His Package. You'll find out someday. I'll play it for you. So, Jeff, did you have something you want to say about the impeachment?
Well, we've been hearing about impeachment from the DNC, National Democrats, for, I guess, even before Trump was elected, they were talking about impeachment.
Yep.
And so, I first started demanding or publicizing the idea that Trump should be impeached in January or February of 2017. He was sworn in January 2017 and immediately started committing war crimes.
So which was the first war crime that bothered you?
Yemen. This war was launched by Saudi Arabia against Yemen during the Obama administration, his second term. And Trump actually did nothing to stop it. So I had been calling for the impeachment of Barack Obama probably since, well, his entire second term, for 4 years, for war crimes in Libya and Syria. All right, so Trump comes in, and there's continuity. There's virtually no change in U.S. foreign policy, especially in the Middle East, between Obama and Trump, just as there was very little change in U.S. foreign policy between George W. Bush and Barack Obama.
Okay, so there's my question.
Continuity over a decade.
Which one do you think changed more, Clinton to Bush, Bush to Obama, or Obama to Trump?
I think Clinton to Bush. Bush invaded Iraq in 2003. Bush and Cheney. And that was a pretty major departure from the low-level, supporting terrorists that started long ago.
Yeah, even when Bush, I don't know if Reagan ever officially invaded anybody. And even when Bush invaded both Panama and Iraq and got out of them as quickly as possible in both cases.
Right. I think Reagan invaded Grenada.
Yeah, Grenada. Yeah, there you are.
Tiny island. But so between Bill Clinton had been bombing Iraq illegally.
Yeah.
In his second term.
Yeah, he sure had.
But Bush and Cheney, after 9/11, simply went all the way and invaded, conquered the country. That's a pretty major departure. An intensification. Basically, U.S. policy got more and more violent, more and more aggressive. And so I would say the turning point was 2003, when the Iraq War, when the U.S. started that war.
Yeah, the utterly corrupt Iraq AUMF.
Yeah. Now, I'm not saying Saddam Hussein was a good guy. He was actually a monster.
Yeah, we covered that last week. Saddam Hussein was a very bad man.
Yeah, and one of the worst things he did was start a war with Iran.
Mm-hmm.
The United States was supporting Saddam at that point. Then he became...
We were selling weapons both sides
and
on
he
that
became, one. Yeah, both sides, mainly Iraq, though.
Yeah.
And suddenly he became an official U.S. enemy, and probably that was during Bill Clinton's term.
What, that Hussein became an official enemy?
Yeah.
Wouldn't it have been during the first Persian Gulf War?
Okay, right.
Yeah.
So before that. Okay, so Bush and Cheney invade and conquer one country. Obama comes along, and there's continuity. He kept our troops in Iraq. He kept talking about pulling them out and ending that war, but he never did.
Nope.
He shifted them around. And so he took two wars, Afghanistan and Iraq, that we had been involved in, and Obama turned it into 7 wars, including, Somalia, Libya, Syria, and so on.
Yemen, yeah.
And Yemen. Right.
Yeah, we were definitely acting, and Ukraine. We were militarily involved in the Ukraine. We were absolutely sending troops but
the U.S. State Department helped overthrow their elected government.
Yeah. Oh God, we should do an episode just on the history of Ukraine.
Sure.
I mean, going from the.
We could do that. I'd have to study up a bit.
Yeah.
But so there's basic continuity. Once the U.S. got militarily into the Middle East, I would say 2003, with the invasion of Iraq, there's been no move to get us out.
No.
And Trump is the same way. He talked about getting our troops out of Syria during his entire campaign for president.
Yeah, and then he hasn't done it.
And he never did it.
Yep, you're right.
And part of that is people in the military, the whole, empire structure, not doing what Trump says he wants, and part of it is his own. He just doesn't care. He can't. What Trump cares about is being politically popular and going down in history as a great president.
Well, he definitely cares
He
about
doesn't
that.
care about details.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, you're right. He treats these things with frustration. You know,
But frustration is not a policy.
Yeah. He's frustrated by these things, and he wants them to be solved and to go away. So
he doesn't have the
them.
mental discipline to make anything happen. Mm-hmm. So,
Which is not to say that he should. It's just that he's a little bit too everyman for me sometimes. Like, you want a president who's above such things. Like, you want a president who knows that Kansas City, Missouri is different from Kansas City, Kansas, right?
I want a president who has a positive vision for this country, and Trump is not that person.
No, he's much too nihilist for me.
He doesn't have a vision at all. In a way, that's similar to Obama.
Yeah. But, Jeff, should we really be criticizing the president?
That's unpatriotic, I know.
I mean, who does that?
Nobody I know.
Oh, man. Anyway, okay, so yeah, you're right. There's been, I would say there's more continuity between Trump and Obama than there was between Clinton and Bush. Because you're right, the major empire building expansion, Afghanistan, building blocks of empire, like what they were talking about the foundations of the Iraq embassy, how they're made out of poured concrete and they're hundreds of feet deep, and we're absolutely just have no intention of going anywhere.
Right.
We are in the Middle East for the long haul.
That might be what the empire intends, but there are other forces.
Yeah.
Like the people of the region who want us out. And I'm real interested to see how long it takes. I think, at some point, Iran is going to succeed in getting all U.S. forces out of at least Iraq and Syria, and maybe the whole region.
Yeah.
They're going to succeed whether it takes them 20 or 40 or 50 years.
Yeah.
We're going.
Yeah.
And Iran is not going anywhere.
No. They've been there for a long time.
Thousands of years.
Yeah.
Persia, which became Iran.
Yeah. I mean, that's really powerful. Not to make light of it, but that's something I noticed in Europe a lot, is that America is made up of the people who were restless or were unhappy or were seventh sons of seventh sons or whatever. Like, Europe is made up of the people who just looked at the world and said, yeah, this is fine. I'm fine. I'll stay here. This is no big deal. And I feel like places like that, like they have a momentum or an inertia or something like that. Anyway, Persia is the Iranian people's and is not ours. And if they want us out, we are going to go. And I would prefer to depart as friends, or at least to depart without anybody getting hurt. I'm just not. That's so Pollyanna-ish, It's so.
Well, it would be nice, and it would be. I don't know, what did it take for the U.S. to leave Vietnam?
Yeah.
It took military defeat.
Yeah.
And great unrest in this country.
Was it defeat? It was a tie. I'm joking, but I mean that's
okay.
The point is we had to create a situation. Well, it's considered unpatriotic to even admit the possibility that another country could defeat us militarily.
Right.
I can't just come right out and say, like, we need to leave or the Iranian people will kill us. I have to say, like, or we need to leave or the Iranian people will kill us and provoke us into killing them because we obviously are bigger because we're America. It's just hard for me to not say that.
Well, the U.S. military is very good at destroying things and destroying countries. But we can't beat the whole world.
Are you sure? Because we're America and we're exceptional. I mean, maybe
we can destroy the whole world easily.
Yeah, it seems like
that's what happens when a nuclear war occurs.
Mutually assured destruction, and as we pointed out, that was something that we glanced on last week, and I thought was a really interesting point that I sort of got distracted on. But mutually assured destruction was a concept. It was created. It was created by the Russians. It was a stabilizing concept. It was a technology that created a social circumstance. It was a social technology. Every bit as much as, I don't know, selling ice cream from a truck.
Well, it created a form of stability between the USSR at that time and the United States.
A nightmarish negative stability. And
a stability based on fear. But,
there's something else you
it's
mentioned
better
last
than
week.
the alternative.
Well, it worked. If it works and if it's stupid and it works, then it's not stupid. That's the law. Okay, so before this seems like a really good time to toss this in because it touched in with the Arab Spring, and this is one of my favorite stories of all time, and I really want to tell this. But do you know why the Arab Spring happened?
I'm not clear on it.
I love this story. When WikiLeaks released the American cables, the Chelsea Manning leak in late 2010. We're talking December 2010. It was like right around Christmas. Anyway, when they released the American cables, it was just a huge glut of information, and nobody had any idea what was in it or what would come out of it. And Chelsea Manning pointed to a few things like, at the time she was Bradley Manning, pointed to a few things like, like the shooting people, innocent people, videos of people shooting innocent people and stuff like that.
With drones.
Yeah, that was pointed out immediately. But that didn't have, it caused some trouble, but that didn't have the effect that everybody expected it would. It turns out that what actually triggered the Arab Spring was buried in a diplomatic communique where they said that the Prince of Tunisia's son owned a tiger that ate 4 chickens a day. I'm not making this up. This is actually what happened. They found way back there, like some American told somebody else, probably as a joke, probably because they thought it was interesting local color that this tiger ate 4 chickens a day.
The tiger's got to eat.
Well, the tiger does have to eat, but you know who else has to eat is the people of Tunisia, and they were apparently starving pretty badly in 2010. There was apparently a serious famine going on. And the news that the prince had a tiger that was eating 4 chickens a day when everybody else couldn't get 1 chicken a week was enraging. And that's what caused the fruit seller to set himself on fire in the Tunisian marketplace, was the news that the tiger had got 4 chickens a day when his family was starving.
Interesting.
And that's what triggered the Arab Spring, was this Tunisian fruit seller setting himself on fire.
Well, the first time I heard that.
Yeah, it's a wild story. I mean, it's all very picturesque. It's got tigers and fruit sellers, but it goes to show whenever these big media dumps come out, nobody actually knows what's going to matter.
Right.
Right. Nobody knows what's going to come out of a leak.
That's right.
And if we appear to be in 2016 Redux right now, I mean, we appear to be on the verge of just doing 2016 again.
In what sense?
Oh, well, I'm just like wildness in the primaries and,
rigged primaries.
Possibly. I remember there being a problem with Iowa last year, too. And again, I mean, not last year, 4 years ago. And again, this is frustration talking, and I'm always very... I'm getting to be very suspicious of frustration. Mm-hmm. Everybody's like, "Why can't I have my Iowa caucus results tonight?" And they're blaming Pete Buttigieg, and maybe that's accurate, maybe that's not. Pete Buttigieg has definitely turned out to be a far more complex character than I thought Mayor Pete would be.
I just read that he's had backing. His campaign went from 0 to anywhere. Mm-hmm. 0 to something, because he had backing from some of the richest oligarchs in America.
Yeah, we're all dancing around trying to say he's not CIA. The guy's obviously CIA. He's the CIA candidate. That's why he went to Somalia on a year. I mean, like, he took a sabbatical when he was in college, and he went to Somalia, to war-torn Somalia, like the worst part of Somalia. I'm like some border region where the CIA does things like that, and he doesn't seem like a Peace Corps guy to me. And then he works with this creepy think tank, and he won't tell anybody what he did with them.
Yeah.
And then he's got all this mysterious funding, and then strange things start happening, and then the Iowa caucus I mean, did you follow the sequence of events? The sequence of events is important. So there was a major poll that was supposed to come out. And then for some reason, Buttigieg's candidate campaign challenged it and wouldn't let this poll come out.
How can they not let it be published?
He was angry because part of his name was cut off on one of the screens, and so people maybe thought they were voting for Pete, but I don't know. Oh, hey, somebody else is here. I suppose they're just something around the place. Anyway, so then this poll gets cut out, and the Des Moines Register can't release it. And then the caucus happens, and the Iowa Democratic Party shuts down all reporting, says they're doing quality control, and that there's some sort of app that has caused a problem where they can't release the data. And then Buttigieg, this is the part that's hearsay. Everything else I've sort of followed along with, but I haven't watched it yet. But apparently Buttigieg went out and gave an acceptance speech where he said he just won the Iowa caucuses. And you got to admire the guy's moxie. But you also have to wonder if he's planning on doing that for the other 49 states, because this is just one primary, you know. He's so that's where we are. We're in limbo right now. We have no results on Iowa. We have 2% reporting. The Bernie Sanders campaign, being rightfully suspicious, did their own polling along with the caucuses, and they've got about 40% reporting and show themselves with a commanding lead, but because there's no official data, mysterious cleaning people. Anyway, because there's no official data, he's obviously not doing anything. He's just waiting. But then Buttigieg apparently just declares victory.
Reminds me of Al Haig. I'm in charge now.
Wait, what is that? What, I remember that.
Alexander Haig. Which administration was that?
He was Reagan.
Reagan.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's some problem in the White House, and Al Haig gets on the TV and broadcast. I'm in charge now.
I remember that. Yeah. And then
He wasn't.
Dick Cheney declared himself in charge of the shadow cabinet, or the shadow government, twice.
Okay.
The shadow government took over twice under Bush's administration.
It's just some temptation they can't seem to resist.
Yeah, I guess so. And maybe that's like you said, that the one thing they can't control is the narrative. But I think it's deeper than that. Like, what they can't really control is how they appear in other people's eyes.
Right.
And it makes them do absolutely crazy things. But okay, and bringing it back to Kentucky, good old Thelma Schoonmaker, the former lieutenant governor of Kentucky, and
like about how long ago?
The 50s to the 70s. She was Secretary of State. Anyway, there was a time when she was lieutenant governor, and the governor, and I can't remember the governor's name. It was like one of the long ago ones, like John Y. Brown or Paul Padden or Brereton Jones or something like that. A long ago name. Anyway, he was out of the state, and she took advantage of a very little-known clause that said if the governor was out of the state or incapacitated, the lieutenant governor took over. And she did. She took over, and she ran the Equal Rights Amendment through the legislature while this guy was just out of town for a week. And that's how Kentucky came to pass the ERA. And that's why when he came back, we had another legislature that passed another bill that unratified the ERA, which caused a huge problem because nobody knows whether you're allowed to unratify something after you ratify it.
Yeah.
Anyway, well, all right, let's get back to a little bit more music before we wrap up the show for the day. All right, that was Against the Day by Wolf Parade off of their new album Thin Mind. One assumes that it is named after the Thomas Pynchon book Against the Day, but I didn't really catch the connection. Here's a clip that I'd like to play relating to what we were just talking about with Vietnam. It's from the film A Fish Called Wanda.
You don't like winners. Winners? Yeah. Winners. Winners like North Vietnam? Shut up! We did not lose Vietnam. It was a tie. I'm telling you, baby, they kicked in our ass there. Boy, they whooped your hide real good. No, they didn't.
Oh, yes, they did.
Oh, no, they didn't.
Oh, yes, they did.
Oh, no, they didn't. Shut up! Goodbye.
I don't know why it stopped. Anyway, you missed the last part. There's a really cool piano chord at the end. Anyway, thank you for listening to Radio Free Eskippakithiki. We still haven't figured out all the little details yet, but it's getting there and it's getting good. This is 88.1 all the way to the left side of your FM dial. The last song you heard was Collapsing Stars by the Mountain Goats, and again, I'm sorry you were robbed of the final chord. It was a really good one. And then before that was a song that I really liked called Ska Waltz Train, off of the Rough Guide to Guitar. And practically all the Rough Guides are excellent. Anytime you see a Rough Guide to anything on a CD, it's going to be pretty darn good. Before that was Against the Day by Wolf Parade, off of their album Thin Mind. I'm just going to call it now. They're done, y'all. They're not into it. Spencer Krug likes making really complicated music, and Wolf Parade is fairly simple alternative pop, you know. They've been around for 15 years, and he's just not into it anymore. You could always tell which songs he was into and which ones he wasn't, and he's just not into Wolf Parade anymore. But that's what makes money, so I guess that's what he does. In any case, Geoff, anything to add? All right, I'm going to play a song by Finn Andrews that I've played at every show so far. This was off of his new album. He's the guy behind the Veils, who you may remember as the band that did the really, 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 really weird song in Twin Peaks: The Return. And this is his most Edward Goriest song ever, won by the Venom. And once again, I must advise you should watch this video. It is so freaking good. Okay, here we go, and thanks for listening. Goodbye.
One in his bed and one all blown to hell. One on his throne and one slumped in his cell. One from the smoke and one